Joined by Patrick Johnston of the Provincetown Post Media. 20 games into the season with the Vancouver Canucks having lost 3 of 4, but they've got 13 wins, Patrick. We're asking on our poll question today for a letter grade. You're a teacher. You are eminently qualified. In fact, your grade will be the one that we accept as official. So what says you?
I'll give them a B. They're doing well.
Oh,
They're doing well.
B?
Oh, you're that teacher.
My God,
you're that
grade
teacher.
on that curve?
What, you guys giving them A's?
Shit. Nobody gets to university out of Mr.
No,
Johnston's
this is
class.
old days. You can work for it.
You're
You guys giving them
burying
A's?
these kids.
B plus. You guys are being those
B+.
students, eh? You guys are being that
Whoa.
students. Those
No,
students.
I think
eh?
B plus is reasonable, but straight B was vicious.
Sorry, you think so there's a half a grade difference there, B plus B. One's reasonable, one is astonishing.
B plus is on the precipice
Where's your
of
consistency?
A. So yeah, there's
Okay, explain yourself. Why so harsh?
Well, I mean, they're scoring goals. They've been stopping goals. But all the other numbers are kind of 50-50. There's a bit of a split there. Like, they're defending well.
Mm-hmm.
But the overall picture is that they're not in first place, guys. If they're in first place, that's where you get A's.
Well, but look at the team in first
So
place.
what?
It's the defending Stanley Cup champions who won their first 7-8 games, for God's sakes. Like 11 of their first 12.
Patrick is the math teacher who sees the correct answer but doesn't love the work.
Exactly.
Yes.
Show me how you got there. Nah. Can't
Thank
give
you.
Full credit.
Did you use
Math
a calculator?
is absolute. They're 1 point off the defending champs.
A lot of games played. In
Second
relation.
place.
Yeah.
Rick Tocchet would want me to give them this grade. He doesn't
What?
want anybody to be satisfied. There you
Okay,
go. Play with the crowd.
to continue with the education theme, like, are you worried about the trajectory of the student? Are you worried that they are headed in the wrong direction? Are you worried who they're hanging out with at recess?
No. I think the work
3
habits
points
are good.
off.
They get it good for work habits. No, they're good. It's just the results are there's a little wobble in the results. So
Yeah.
I suppose if I, you have to have a, this is a report card, right? Like, you have to do a cutoff point. And if it had been last week, I probably do give them an A or an A minus. But there's been a wobble.
Mm-hmm.
Been a wobble. The trend is not consistent.
A lot of sick days too. Injuries are starting to pile up.
Plus 29. It leads the league.
Oh, all that's actually coming down though significantly.
But it's
Coming
still
down,
leads
way
the
down.
league.
Their 5-on-5
7-1
shooting
and 1 at
percentage is
home.
fourth. 5-on-5 shooting percentage is now only fourth in the league. Only the third best save percentage.
He's a tough marker. He's a tough marker.
Wow.
I want to see. Yeah, come on.
Let's pursue this further. If you had a student who came to you and said, Mr. Johnston, I really like to discuss my grade, would you be open to that conversation?
Yes.
Like,
Well,
okay.
I have to. I know I'm obligated to, because in Ecology 9, I went to Mr. Raoul after he'd given me a C+, basically knocking me down for all my terrible artwork. And I said to him, I said, Mr. Raoul, you said at the beginning of the year that artistic ability was not an element of what you're marking here. And he went and looked and said, yeah, I really have kind of not done you well. And literally sat there, remarked it right in front of me. And my C+ became an A. So I'm obligated. I'm obligated to listen to counterpoints.
I had that happen too once.
C+ to A. I mean, you should have gone to law school after that.
I had that too once. I had a paper, a poli-sci paper that I compared the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand and the events leading up to World War I to a bowl of French onion soup in my paper. It got marked as an A- by the student, by the TA in first or second year university. The teacher saw the essay and was like, no, this is minimizing all of it, and so gave me a C+. And I went back and I said, I can see it used to be an A, like the liquid paper. I could see the outline. I was like, I know this was an A. How did it get from all the way? And I got my mark back as well. So the squeaky wheel always gets the grease.
My first year at Carleton, I needed a 80% average to go into second year journalism. That's where they weeded people out.
Yeah.
And I was right on the borderline, and I went to a TA who was a scary TA. She introduced herself to us saying, My name is Tanya. It rhymes with lasagna. If you call me Tanya, you're getting an F. And I was like, whoa, they get away with this in university? And I talked my way from a B+ to an A- to get like just over the line by 0.2%.
Thanks,
Well done.
Tanya.
Well
Tanya.
done.
Yeah.
Well done. In the end,
Okay,
Canucks
we're
can't
way
talk
off
their ways
track.
out of these injury problems.
We're way off track. Is PDG on line 2 run its course?
Well, I mean, I wrote about it yesterday. I still think he is their best forechecker. But there were 2 plays. I think I'm trying to think now. It was what were we? We were on a Friday night. It must have been the Seattle game last Saturday. There were a couple moments in that game where you could just see the sort of the spring is not as sort of fine-tuned, and that's just who he is, as you really need from a second liner. There was a play where he basically couldn't read it quickly enough to hit Miller, who had rotated into a great shooting position, sort of the side of the slot. PDG had ended up with a puck right on the goal line, just needed to quickly fire it up, and he couldn't do it. And then there was a moment when Miller got a great zone entry and basically put it in front of him on an angle, skating into the slot, and he didn't have this. He just didn't have the step. I mean, that's not who he is. He's a very handy, hardworking player. He'd look great on your third or fourth line. I think I said this last week. I mean, if this team really does have ambitions going to the playoffs, that is a spot you need to upgrade. That is the spot
right,
where you find the guy that can do more, and then he becomes a third liner or fourth liner, and that makes the rest of your lineup better.
Who in the bottom 6 is most deserving of upward mobility in this lineup?
Well, I mean, I don't know if that's the other question. I don't know if that's in there. I mean, they've obviously spotted Beauvillier in there the other night. They need to find a way to get him going somehow, but I don't think it's in the lineup. I think the lineup as it's currently constructed is kind of optimized for what's available. It is a question of finding, I think, someone from outside who's going to be able to push everything down.
All this talk about winger depth, and here they are in need of a winger. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, I can see. This is what I mean. Like, if this is a team that's trying to take the big step forward, they obviously need another defenseman, because we can see it right now with the injury problems. There is just nothing else on the right side right now. But they're clearly, I mean, you can tell Rick Tocchet is not convinced about Akito Hirose. That's why he's playing all these righties. So that is clearly priority 1. But the smart move also will be to add a winger, because I mean, you should never stand still in building your roster anyway. But what they have is a decent collection of depth wingers. They don't have a guy that's an obvious guy that really going to stick on your second line, on your Miller line, whatever line that is.
Imagine if Besser wasn't going this year.
Hoglander. Anyways,
a Hoglander maybe, but again, I think it's just that it's that sort of processing speed. There was a play in training camp where Pettersson they were trying to work a quick move, and just Hoglander just didn't have the quick fire muscles. Didn't fire quickly enough. Like, he does a lot of things really well. I think he's perfectly suited to what he's doing right now. I don't think he's a guy that's going to be able to bump up.
Patrick Johnston, he ate rusty nails for breakfast today. That's how tough he is.
The correct answer, I'll correct both of you, is Vasily Podkolzin if he didn't get injured. That's the correct answer.
The correct answer is not on the farm.
Well, Podkolzin is
on the recovery trail.
No, again, if he wasn't injured, Vasily Podkolzin would be the choice. But he needs to get back into
in the long run. That could be the solution, absolutely. But I don't think it's there yet.
How worried are you about Pettersson?
Well, I think I've come to the conclusion it's a groin issue. Those don't heal easily. It's especially when you're playing this many games, right? It's the kind of thing that needs rest. And if you've never had a groin issue, walking along is fine. It's when you have to do anything that involves power or strides or anything like that, you feel it, and it just takes away. So, as Jeff pointed out, 1 goal in 7 games, like that's some of it is teams defending better, and some of that's just he's having a hard time separating himself, and it's, I think, 100% because of his skating, because I think there's a groin issue there.
There wasn't a lot of face-offs taken. It's not wrist. You think it's groin?
Well, I mean, there might be wrist as well, but there's just something about the movement, the that's there. I think that's part of the issue.
So, I'm not sure this is a question that would have been asked at different points in this Vancouver Canucks tenure, but how much do you think they'll miss Tyler Myers if he's going to be missing tomorrow in Seattle?
Yeah,
especially in concert with, for the end of the game with 4D.
Yeah, I mean, I just pulled up the NHL roster report just to see if they had made any moves quietly and not told anybody yet. They're still standing firm on what's there. Yeah. I mean, Myers. Let's be clear. Myers, I think, has settled into a better role. He's been playing less. I've got a story coming next week. A great conversation with Adam Foote about his own growth as a coach. I asked Rick Tocchet about where Foote is now compared to when he joined him last winter. What's his growth been? And Tocchet looked at me and said 1,000,000%. That this was a guy who had been thinking the game a lot, but didn't have a lot of coaching experience. The time in Kelowna did not go terribly well, I think, from what I've understood. He was a guy who had coached his kids in essentially sort of elite minor hockey, but didn't have a whole lot of sort of nuts and bolts. Here's how it's going to work kind of training. But a bright guy, in our conversation, a couple times said, there's a lot I don't know. And that's huge for someone, coming from sort of his background, having played at the high level he did and been the tough, strong, top, hard-nosed defenseman. I think this is a story. This may turn into be a story of a coach who's sort of figured out how to explain his ideas and help his players find a calmness. That was the word I talked to Ian Cole about Foote. He said he's brought a calmness. He's so good at calming us down on the bench. And he just reminds them of what they're trying to do and the details, the staples, all the stuff that they've been talking about. You think about the chaos that we're seeing in the Oilers right now trying to defend. It reminds me of the chaos that we saw the Canucks defending last year when there was no system. There was nothing to look at. You couldn't figure out they had no plan. There was no set plan. And for a player like Tyler Myers, who for most of his career, I think in fairness, relied on sort of his athleticism and his ability just to be bigger and stronger. He's in his 30s now. He needs to play smarter. And that was not a system geared to a guy like him. I do think that the way, he's managed to sort of calm his game, there's a lot less, oh crap, there's Myers kind of moments, right? It's been a lot more sort of steady play. Yeah, like there's a reason why he's had a long NHL career. It used to be because of athleticism. He knows the game. Now it's just teaching how to execute. And that's why having him not there, I mean, it's the absence. It's weird to say, but it's the absence of him that we will notice.
Two things about Tyler Myers. Number one, you're right. He's a smart guy. He's a really smart guy. And number two, he's a friendly guy. I've encountered him a number of times over the years here downtown and in Kits. And of course, everyone recognizes him because he's so tall. And I've seen him be very kind.
On the coaching staff, though, they've been getting some good cutaways of the discussion between Tocchet and Foote on the bench, and I don't know. It just seems like that dynamic is working, and that both of these guys might be uncovering some or turning over some stones and figuring out some stuff there on the bench, because neither one of them is seasoned back there, and I think they're both learning on their second go rounds, at a decent level here, how to do all this.
Absolutely. And that's something, again, that Tocchet mentioned. He told me, he said, listen, Adam has ideas. We'll argue about stuff, but this speaks to our friendship, is that we will disagree, but we leave the office and he goes and does what the plan is, as I'm the boss and he's the assistant, and that's fine. And that's they debate stuff. Like, that's a big positive thing to hear. And exactly. And he has a lot of trust in Foote's sort of command of the bench, what they're trying to, here's who's going out.
And that's the cutaway that actually got my attention last night. Was Foote came up to Tocchet, and this is all on TV. Foote came up to Tocchet and sort of talked to him about something that was quizzical in his look. Tocchet, sort of explained what he wanted, and then Foote said, yeah, okay, and then went back into this thing. Like, it was very much, and I'm the assistant. What do you need here, coach? And he told him. It was interesting to watch.
First of all, it happens all the time. Like, that is sort of the essence of coaching, is those behind closed doors sessions where you map out the strategy with your chief lieutenants. The other thing that's constructive about it, particularly as Foote and Tocchet have characterized it, is that if things aren't going well, there's a pretty fair chance that you have thought and talked through the alternative strategies.
Yeah,
So so that's what makes the chemistry between a head coach and his assistants so important.
Well, and that's what Foote told me, is that he's recognized not to be afraid to make adjustments. You know, if something's not working, let's make a tweak. He said some coaches might be worried that the players will think, oh, well, this guy's showing weakness or something. But he goes, we got to fix the problem. And that's been a big learning point for him. And, you know, he talks obviously a lot. He is so blown away by the depth of knowledge of how coaching works that he's learning from Tocchet. That, you know, Tocchet has taken an interesting course through his coaching career, but you know, coached in Arizona, but was an assistant to Mike Sullivan. I mean, talk about a guy that'd be a great guy to learn from in Pittsburgh, and had his sort of weird, obviously, was with Gretz early on, and then had a clearly not ready for it stint in Tampa. Although it's interesting, if you go back and look some of the numbers, some of the underlying stuff, like he still had some interesting things like that. That was a decent. He got his team playing in a decent way. He just, I think, was not ready to be the head coach. The dialogue is there. There's absolutely no doubt about it, and the preparation level, and that was Tocchet said. He said, you know, Adam now knows how to come. He has stuff. He's, you know, how to run a meeting, I think, was sort of something that they needed to work on. And he basically said he comes with all this stuff now. He didn't have that. He didn't know how to now he knows, you know, and there's the preparation level from everybody clearly, and it is higher, and you can hear it from the players, the dynamic that's there, and the conversation, the back and forth that they've all been talking about. I mean, it certainly sounds like it's effective. You know, obviously now the test is here. They've got to kind of right their course a little bit.
Higher. Can they take this higher?
Yeah. Let's go higher. Let's go to management. Do they see these injuries and fast track any deal that they've been working on? I know Calgary has said they're not going to be pushed to do this sooner rather than later, but do you think they just have to find something NHL caliber help rather than looking to the farm?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think the Soucy injury did get them moving, thinking in this, and now they're here, right? Like, they're gonna, you know, if they do lose one guy for any amount of time, I assume it's going to be Christian Wolanin and maybe Matt Irwin that comes up. But those are obviously not long-term fixes. That if you try again, if you are serious about the playoffs, you gotta start pushing your chips in. You start adding guys. You get more than you really need right now, because you're going to need it all in the end. I think this is, and like you said, they're 1 point off Vegas, and they're in the midst of a stumble, right? Like they're stumbling
3 points.
Oh, sorry, 3 points. Yeah, they're anyway, but they're in that. As I said, was it last week? You know, they're in that range. They've got to start thinking about, is this a division we can somehow win? And if that is, you know, now is the time. Whether you can get ahead of it and make it all happen is a different question. But certainly, yes, I'm sure they have taken this as a motivational element.
28 years ago today, the Vancouver Canucks acquired NHL character Esa Tikkanen. You've got a story there.
Well, I mean, first of all, yeah, Esa Tikkanen type would be great for this team. You know, a little more mojo, a little more swagger. No, so I've been told this story a couple of times by Corey Hirsch. He assures me it is absolutely accurate. Going into this night 28 years ago, the Canucks had lost 6 of 7. They pick up Esa Tikkanen, bit of a dart throw because he had some knee issues and he was a personality anyway. As Corey says it, they'd lost 3 games in a row. Rick Lee was making them rewatch all 3 games so that they could see just how mediocre they'd been.
It's a big video session.
What a video session. At some point in this video session, the door bursts open, and there is Esa Tikkanen standing there with a stack of pizzas and announces, "Don't worry, boys, Moses is here."
That's the first impression with the team.
You're like, all right. And he had I think he didn't play right away. He had that knee issue. They cleaned up his knee. I think, certainly I remember the reporting at the time was very upbeat and positive about from him being, the Canucks saved my career. And he was a point per game. He played 37 games or something over the course of the season, was a point per game player. His last sort of great season, if you want to call that great, was in Vancouver. And he had, sort of fell away the next year.
And if I recall,
Wandered around.
he did not lead them to the promised land.
No,
he did not.
No.
He did not. But it started on such a high note.
They did.
Yeah.
So a high note addition. The Canucks would be wise to give such a part the Red Sea and get such a quality addition. And then hopefully that person does lead them to the promised land.
It's a pretty good story, Patrick. I give it
Good capper, hey? Good way to finish.
Well, we started contentiously. That story, I give it a B+. Maybe a B.
Wow. Hard marker. This clip brought to you by the VGH Millionaire Lottery. Order now for your chance to win one of 10 grand prizes. For tickets, go to millionairelottery.com.